Hello, everyone. This is Devin Thorpe for CrowdFundBeat, and I'm excited to have with us really one of my great friends in the crowdfunding world, one of the people I admire that's really doing some innovative things in that space, Alon Goren, and he is the founder of INVST, and many of you will be familiar with INVST. It's a platform that provides crowdfunding platforms to other companies that want to launch crowdfunding sites. And now he's launched a new business, INVST, that provides the opportunity for sophisticated accredited investors to access institutional quality opportunities like hedge funds and other alternative investments. Alon, thank you very much for joining us today. We're excited to talk to you about this.
Thank you for having me. Always happy to chat.
Well, tell us more about INVST, this new platform that you're working on, that you've launched.
Yeah, so we, there's a few things we learned. So we've been in the crowdfunding industry for years now. We started our first business about 7 years ago in crowdfunding when INVST first started. And over the years, we decided our sweet spot, being techies ourselves, would be the technology. So we knew technology really well. We started to understand the crowdfunding world really well, but we knew there would always be the business people who didn't understand technology as well as we did, would need teams like us, and we would need teams like them. So we had always been the techies in the space, and being the techies in the space, we learned a lot. One of the things we learned was that there was a few underserved areas in crowdfunding, or in at least securities being sold online. One of those places were real estate, which now is blowing up, something we talked about a long time ago, and I'm really excited for. And another space was the fund world, hedge funds, real estate funds, VC funds, and we started to look at how we wanted to attack that space. And what we decided was, for this particular product, instead of powering sites for other folks, which we do power some sites for individual funds who want to do, have their own sort of place for their current investors to invest in their funds on their websites. But we decided, if we're going to go after building a portal in this space, that we would bring on and partner with the financial folks and the sort of experts in that field, and launch it ourselves. So instead of owning a tiny piece or getting paid to power somebody else's site, we decided this was a space we wanted to go after ourselves. And so we just recently partnered with Carillon Capital and Bendigo Securities. Most people know Bendigo as CrowdClear in the crowdfunding world. So they power, they're a broker-dealer that powers transactions. And both of those groups are ran by former E-Trade executives. So what sort of perfect folks to partner with when trying to bring online a $7 trillion industry?
Well, let's talk about that. You say it's a $7 trillion industry. This really is a big niche in the online transaction space, and really the connection here to the crowdfunding world is that these transactions will oftentimes be affected under rules that were designed or came out in the Jobs Act under Title II, and or they're being affected on platforms that were built originally for crowdfunding transactions. So tell us a little bit about this space, this $7 trillion space.
So there's a few interesting things. One is that we actually built this product as a private network, and so just being a customer of it doesn't mean you're automatically publicly soliciting, which means that you're still falling under the old rules. So one thing I always coach up our clients on, and I sort of give I always say, we're the techies and the other people are the financial folks, but we've been in this long enough to where we've sort of become the financial folks as well. Just my bad self-esteem saying that I'm not good at it. But the idea is really that if you want to build a really successful business in the crowdfunding world, you can't hinge your business on the Jobs Act, because it's not, you really don't know what you're getting into yet. And so I try to coach up most of the people who are our clients that will listen to me, that you have to build a very solid and hopefully successful business on the rules that are already rules, on the rules that are already out there and are proven, on premises that already have seen no action letters from the SEC. And so that's what we've done with this. And we believe public solicitation and a lot of the things that are a part of the Jobs Act are going to throw gasoline on the fire. And so that's why we built it this way. Some of our clients are publicly soliciting, some of them aren't. But you'd have to be crazy to ignore public solicitation or some of these fields, because you look at folks running $100 million funds or billion-dollar funds or a few billion-dollar funds, right? And for the first time ever, they could use some of that management fee, which depending on the fund can be anywhere from, the examples I give, from $2 million to $200 million worth of management fees on marketing. And they've never been able to do that before. They've never been able to pay publicists to get them onto Forbes to talk about how they're currently fundraising and how this is the way to get in. So those folks, are spending a lot of money now, and they need to point people to a portal, to a place where the investors can transact, because they're not set up. They don't have a shop set up to take hundreds of phone calls from hundreds of potential investors and start closing them. They need to point them online, see who's interested, be able to analyze how interested somebody is by what they're doing online on their deal room, and then be able to have a senior level salesperson call that person and close them. So that's essentially what we built, whether or not somebody is publicly soliciting.
Yeah, it really is a great adaptation of the technology you've been developing for crowdfunding per se to a new niche. But I want to drill down a little bit on the reference you made to it's a $7 trillion market. What's $7 trillion? Is that the assets available under management? What's $7 trillion?
Yeah. So it's sort of there's a few different research points where you'll get different numbers, but essentially I use that as a point to just show how massive that is. That's assets under management, alternative assets under management in the United States alone. We're not talking about the rest of the world.
Yeah. That's a good little niche.
a small little niche to go after. It's in part, like just totally honest and transparent and talking, like friends, how we end up doing on Google Hangout, which is a little less formal, but it's literally partly really, really exciting, partly insanely terrifying, because what you're dealing with is an industry that is huge. It works really well offline already. You're just taking something that might be inefficient but is already a huge industry and saying, hey, we're going to do it more efficient, and if you get paid in this industry already, we're going to try to get you paid more, because we'll take a smaller cut than anybody else does. And then you're disintermediating a system that is is ubiquitous to our lives. It's the banking industry. So it's partly insane to try and go after it, but it's why it's exciting.
Well, it is exciting. The size of this, if you figure the average asset life is probably around 7 years, give or take, you're talking about $1 trillion of transactions each year, and having a piece of that might be a good thing. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with you. It's not just a good thing. It's what we're doing. So something we haven't talked about that's really interesting is there's people who make a significant living dealing with this, right? And I come from the tech world, so the funds that I was familiar with before I started working on all of this stuff were VC funds. And with VC funds, there's some names, right? There's Andreessen, and there's guys like Mark Suster and guys like that who have a name for themselves, and they raise the money that they end up investing in companies and all that. But when you get into the hedge fund world, when you get into the real estate fund world, and even in the VC world, but they just hide it better, a significant portion of the money is actually raised by third-party guys, making an honest living, basically saying, hey, Devin, I've got this opportunity. Are you interested in investing? And if you invest, I'll get a portion of those fees. If I have to work for the fund or I have to be licensed to do it, but there's definitely a lot of people who do that. It's a significant portion of the funds raised. Some research will say that a majority of the funds raised by funds are raised by those guys. So what we did in making it more efficient is just started telling all those guys that if you use our site and if you introduce investors to the deals on our site and you're licensed and able to collect a success fee, we'll pay you more than anybody else. And so now we're basically taking this technology distribution, which should make things more efficient just because it's a technology tool set that will help funds be more efficient, but we're also added this third user, which is the fund marketer, and the third-party guy who makes a living doing this and making their life easier. So in those combinations, I think we're going to start to bring something that's happening offline online. It's going to be a really, really long process. I mean, we're not talking about convincing somebody to go on Amazon and spend $10 on a book, or go on Kickstarter and spend $100 on a campaign that might bring them something, or even go on to AngelList or Crowdfunder and put $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 on a startup, which startup is a tough sell because there's a chance you'll lose all of your money on it, but most of the funds we're dealing with aren't quite ready yet to completely cater their fund to come online. So we're talking about the same normal minimum investments they have right now, which now means we're bringing somebody online and trying to convince them to put $250,000 minimum investments on. You know, some of them are $50,000, some of them are $1 million, but it's really interesting, really exciting, and we'll see. I'm sure there's going to be a slow, uptick of folks who are comfortable. We're making them more comfortable by bringing the folks they already know online, and we're making them a little more comfortable because we're funds which are fully diversified already. Some of them are cash flowing, risk-adjusted funds, so they know from the beginning what they're getting into. But at the end of the day, once you can show a little bit of traction here, you're going to be able to show, basically going to scare the crap out of the banking industry and have them realize that, their old ways are changing.
Yeah. Well, you made the argument that it's not like going on Amazon and paying $10 for a book, and yet some might argue that that is in fact exactly what this is. The people that you're dealing with on both sides of the transaction are well accustomed to the investment process. The only thing you need to teach them how to do is to do it in an easier way online, and all of them already know how to buy a book on Amazon. So I'm betting you'll see this scale much more rapidly than you're expecting.
From your mouth to God's ears. No, you're absolutely right there. The things we have to deal with, so the things that we're really cognizant of and what sets us apart from the average person launching like a securities marketplace is that we come at it as techies and product guys. So we do look at it like I worked at Amazon. I read the reports that they paid for that basically said for every millisecond of load time a page loads, the more money they make, right? They could actually prove from the technology side that faster load time leads to more money made. And what I always was a product person at all the places I worked at. So to me, it was very important to simplify things and to make them really easy. So we want to make the process feel to a family office or a high net worth individual exactly the same as buying a book on Amazon. But we have to deal with regulatory issues, and we have to purposely jump through hoops and do all sorts of things like that. So we're trying to make the process feel as close to what you're talking about as possible while still fulfilling all the legal requirements, doing ACH transfers because you can't just put in a credit card, things like that. But you're absolutely right. Over time, I think once people get used to the dealing with a fund manager and exploring a PPM and a deck online and maybe hopping on the phone instead of having a dinner and being wined and dined, then it'll be done. It's the offline part of it. Look, years ago, people would think you were insane if you said, hey, Devin, Thorpe, and I are starting a business. We've met once at a conference. Actually, we met 2 or 3 times at conferences, but we've been Google Hangouting every day, and we're going to start a business together. That would have been insane 20 years ago.
Right.
The founder of IMDb tells a similar story where IMDb is older than the World Wide Web. It was a Usenet news group before it was the Internet Movie Database. And he tells a similar story about how he met the 2 other founders in New York to incorporate the business for the first time when they went to incorporate the business. And his parents and everybody he knew thought he was insane because this was 25 years ago, or 20 years ago. So, it's a new world we live in.
Today.
I have friends on the internet I've never met before. And so it makes perfect sense that the trust and the connection just gets better and better, and you start transacting this way. I know we're totally, diverting off topic and getting philosophical, but it's exciting. I think it's a great time for this sort of thing.
It really is. Well, Alon, I'm excited about it. Now, tell people a little bit about who's invited to this party at INVST. Who is welcome to apply and participate?
So right now, we call it INVST. By the way, I didn't sort of mention it at the beginning, but the URL for the product is inv.st. The reason for that is it's purposely a little bit obscure because we wanted it to be an invite-only private platform. But that being said, you can request an invite if you're either an accredited investor, a fund manager, or a fund marketer. And I welcome anybody to apply. Contact me directly. We can talk about it. And it's interesting when you talk about who's invited, because the whole premise of why any of us got into this business is because we didn't want it to be that way, right? We wanted it to be this all-inclusive democratization of capital raising. But hopefully the rules and laws change quick enough for us to be able to do things like that. Most of our clients are going after things like that. But right now for this product, we are talking about high net worth individuals and folks who can make those minimum investments in funds. But hopefully things change over time, and we start being able to allow anybody in. And that all depends on how quickly the SEC and the government can get things done and make in a usable fashion. Without diving too deep into that whole discussion, which could be, a week-long rant of mine.
That's right. Well, Alon, thank you very much for your time today. I congratulate you on the launch of this new business and wish you success in doing it.
Hey, thank you so much, and it was great to speak to you, and hopefully we do this again soon.
I look forward to it.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's do some good.